Hello, good afternoon. Look at you, cool guy.
Hey.
Well, good to see you. Things are looking bright, Lawrence.
Things are looking good. We need the is that CSI? You know, the with the Who music comes on. We don't get food again. Because that's what this episode is about, right? We will not get food again. The cool music comes in, and then I just come in. Well, looks like we got another headline. For if this is ever on audio only, folks, I'm wearing sunglasses right now. I actually just took them off, and I surprised Heidi, and that was
very dramatically.
It was very dramatic. Yes, I took them off very dramatically.
Speaking and it is perfect segue into our topic today, which is media magnification and manipulation. So super star-studded sunglass style, super intense. I'm very excited to see how we're going to explore this. But welcome to episode 15 of the Kids Health series. 15. Thank you so much for joining. Yes, and we have Mr. Lawrence August. Yes,
it's 15. So that's what 15. How many fives is that?
3.
That's 3 fives. I think we need to do 3 virtual high fives, Heidi, in honor of episode 15. Let's do 3 in a row.
Okay, you call it.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. High five.
Hey!
1. Let's do another one.
Woo!
2. Let's do another one.
3. Oh, you are like a coach. You're coaching.
Episode 15.
That's fun. Thank you. Thanks for playing with me and doing this, Lawrence. I mean, we've only been doing this really, 6 months? Or no, what month is it?
Kind of like later.
Christmas time-ish.
Something like that, around the holidays.
Yeah,
here we are. It's already August. I might be biased, but I really do like the month of August.
I know. Somebody's birthday's coming.
Yes, it is.
See, I celebrated for you. Look at all my decorations.
I know. Oh my God. You decorated just for me, right?
You know, it's so funny. We just had my teen's birthday and the Giants is tomorrow. So I'm like, just leave them up.
This is perfect. Yeah.
It's Leo season.
Yeah. Hey, how are you? Before we start, how are you doing? It's been a couple weeks and things
changed a little bit since last time. Yeah, if you catch our last episode, I got to share a really good chunk of my legendary grandma's story who did transition. She passed. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I thought it was really cool with it all. Grief hits you in weird ways. So there's a little bit coming out. Yeah. So she did transition. She took her final breath. And it was a celebration, their promotion. It's a promotion to transition, especially out of an ailing meat suit. Where it trips me up is like, it wasn't ailing. She was doing all right until that fall. So
well, my condolences.
Thank you.
It was really a pleasure to get to talk about her and
thank you.
And I know what she meant to you. So
she's a trip, man. She's really, every time I feel my sharp tongue coming, I'm like, Grandma, is that you coming through? I don't really want to say this.
She'll be with you always. Let's see if she shows up today and we can.
Yeah. Hey, all I'm saying is I'll take your genes, Grandma. Just keep me going that long.
I think so far, I think there's good evidence that you do have a lot of those genes. So
I got to start sporting some lashes now too, but please check that out. I just got to do my little thing because first shout out to Neil. Hi, Neil Warren. You've been such a lovely, you've been commenting on our podcast. You've been with us this whole journey, and I just really appreciate you coming by. So special shout out to our friend Neil from across the pond. And
thank you, Neil.
Yeah. And we have our episodes up on Rumble, everyone. We are under my playlist on Heidi Pop on YouTube, and we have kidsgethealthy.com and Mr. Rainbow Chef Man, but you can find our playlist on our channel. See, I got all tripped up. So I lost my, I'm a little all over the place. So
it's all good. We're here. Woo,
Leo season. Okay. So how about that media? Yeah, how about that media manipulation, Lauren?
Yeah, the media, boy, oh boy, oh boy. There's a lot of there's a lot to this discussion, but what I wanted to focus on today was a particular thing that kind of caught my eye this past week. It went from me being somewhat excited to sort of predictably disappointed. It was a little news clip on the guidelines that were put forward by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Now, on the sort of thumbnail, it was an article and it had a thumbnail of a video. They had showed motivational interviewing, behavioral interventions, and then lastly, they spoke about the GLP-1 drugs that were recently approved. What was interesting right off the bat was they were, when the story came in, it was like groundbreaking guidelines by the Academy of Pediatrics. Well, these guidelines were in February. This was just again a recent clip. So I thought, okay, well, all right, I guess it's breaking news, but 6 months later, maybe they just didn't have much to talk about. But I was excited because I thought they would be speaking about motivational interviewing, which for some of the people that regularly listen to us, we did a whole show about that, change talk, motivational interviewing. That's sort of my jam. That's my specialty. That's my go-to. And so I thought maybe there might be some, nice words on that. And boy, not to be. So if we could share, maybe I could pull up, let me pull up this clip. We do a share screen.
Yes.
Yeah, let's see what we can do. I need like 2 monitors or something.
We need a production team.
We need a production team, but this showing. Let's go.
It just popped in.
Instagram page. So you guys could go to my Instagram page, kidsgethealthyUSA, and we can go here to this particular post. So I do a post daily. Usually it's on some news headline or a study that I feel is important to share and kind of archive. And do we have sound here? If I pull up, let's see.
Yep. It's a chronic disease associated with a lifetime of health risks.
A new study by the CDC warns that type 2 diabetes will surge 700% in people under the age of 20 in the next 40 years.
About 20% of the pediatric population now has obesity.
New guidelines by the American Academy of Pediatrics, or AAP, is hoping to revolutionize the way we approach childhood obesity.
It highlights that a watch and wait strategy is not effective.
The AAP guidelines include evidence-based recommendations such as motivational interviewing to behavior treatments and pharmaceuticals like the newly FDA-approved Wegovy.
Okay.
The first once-weekly weight loss injection approved for kids.
It can make a really huge difference.
Hey, studies show 95% of teens with type 2 diabetes who had bariatric surgery.
You mean to stop?
3 years following surgery.
I'm
and 74% normalize their high blood pressure.
I think there's always hope that if you treat this disease, you're going to lessen the long-term consequences.
I'm Marty Salt reporting.
I don't know. So just we could stop the share now.
Yeah.
So you guys could check out that clip again. Now, a couple things with that clip. One, I chopped it down. It was actually 2.5 minutes long. I chopped it down to about a minute. There was also an entire segment, by the way, that featured this lovely young girl who lost weight using the drugs that were talked about. And hey, I'm happy for her that she had that intervention. It's not a knock on that. Why I didn't include that was, one, for the sake of the time of the clip, but two, essentially I felt like I was watching a drug commercial.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I thought.
If you see that clip, you'll notice they kind of bullet point motivational interviewing, behavioral therapy, Wegovy, GLP-1 agonist drug, and boom, 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 boom. We went right into it, right? Mm-hmm. How wonderful the drug intervention was. That irritates me. Guys, when these guidelines were issued back in February, there were a lot of doctors extremely enthusiastic about it. And, I was pretty active in the comment sections, on these boards about these drugs. And people were saying, well, what about behavioral therapies? What about motivational interviewing? Well, yeah, that's all in the guidelines. That's what they're saying. Well, that's already in the guidelines. Okay, fine. It's in the guidelines. Good. It's 100 pages. It's right there. If you were a sort of regular citizen, you're not kind of in the trenches like I am, like we are. We're kind of a little health conscious. We're aware of these things. you're just kind of watching the news, and as far as you're concerned, what you're seeing is that this is the go-to, right? And what I am calling right now is we're going to see such a normalization of these drug interventions, and I even managed to work in this dimension of bariatric surgery on here, that over time you're going to see more and more and more and more people turn to these therapies. Now, again, my big problem is that if we're looking at the actual data, these therapies work very, very well. In fact, if you go back to, we can go back to my page again here, Heidi. Let me do a screen share. I want to show you guys something here. Oh, here we are. Perfect. Oh, you can just come right. I like that. If we go to actually another post that I did about coaches, right? Wellness coaches in Buffalo Pediatrics office. Now, if we want to look at how effective this intervention was, the study found 27% of children in the family treatment group, compared to 9% in the traditional pediatric care group, had a clinically meaningful reduction in BMI, which is tied into improved cardiovascular health, as well as better regulation, the amount of fat compounds, blood sugar needed to best fuel the human body. Really powerful intervention, utilizing a coach, like a health coach, right? Now,
great, Lawrence, you just froze that 1 second. You said it's a utilizing, and then what did you say?
Utilizing a health coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing now.
Yep.
And so when we're looking at something like that, these are the kind of things that if the media was doing really a good job of journalism, they would be reporting on this. This would be, front page headlines. Look at this intervention, 27% to 9%. Pretty significant. And we can go on and on and on. This is kind of old news for me, where again and again we see a lot of these interventions being overlooked. And so, right out at the start here, I just wanted to kind of vent about this, is that, if we're serious about these guidelines, and, the first line approach is in fact things like motivational interviewing and behavioral intervention, let's talk about it as such. Let's see it as such.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we're getting this sort of myopic view. Again, we're magnifying this one element, and it's sort of shrinking and glossing over a lot of these other things in the background. And now, if you want, I don't know if you had any questions on that, but
I'm just listening. I see hopium versus doomsday still.
Yeah. Now,
it's like, what are they going to share? Mm-hmm.
To kind of pivot here, kind of in tandem with that news from the last week, there was other news regarding the same class of drugs. Now, this class of drugs are called GLP-1 agonists, glucagon-like peptide receptor 1 agonists. And there is an active component in these drugs called semaglutide, ways you could pronounce it. Now, they just finished a 5-year, I believe it was 5 years, 4 or 5 years study done to show the effects of semaglutide in the form of a higher dose, what is called Wegovy, right? So Wegovy is the weight loss version of this drug. It's the same active ingredient. This is the drug that was approved for children. The dosing can go up much higher to 2.4 milligrams. Ozempic, semaglutide, was the original GLP-1 drug for diabetics, which is as low as 0.25 milligrams. So, so there's some differences in dosing. And what this study found, and the headlines are all over the place, and people are popping champagne bottles that invested in these drugs, and drug companies are very happy, is that these drugs apparently showed a 20% reduction in cardiovascular events. Right? Now, there were sort of two separate arms of this trial. They had one where it was done on diabetics. How well could it reduce the risk of cardio events in diabetics? Mm-hmm. That study completed last year. I think it was like a 26% reduction. This group was a group of healthy, non-diabetic participants, right? And apparently it was a 20% reduction. Now, whenever we kind of want, is a little bit of a teachable moment here, guys. And Heidi and I, we talked about this before, you and I, about, a certain virus, right? And the treatment for that was proposed. They put forward all of these different, percentages. This is a 95% reduction, right? And we spoke about relative risk reduction and absolute risk reduction. This is important. Drug companies really like to tell you about relative risk reduction. So if I may do another share, I had
Please.
put a clip together. It's about 3 minutes. Hang in there, guys. But it's a great walkthrough, much better than I could do. I think it's nice to have a visual. Let me find that clip. It's a video file, so hopefully this will work. Oh, I love it. I think I got it here. Let's open this up.
Just waiting for it to pop up.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Should be on here.
Cool.
Okay.
I want to stress how important it is to know what these two numbers are, particularly when you are talking about any intervention in medicine, because often many out there will have an incentive to push relative risk reduction, which can exaggerate the effects of any particular intervention. And often, no surprises, that is coming from a company or organization, business, which will benefit from the particular intervention, frequently in a monetary way. It could be big pharma or it could be another company. So they will want to push relative risk reduction over absolute risk reduction because it does tend to exaggerate study results. But it's really important in medicine and science to know these two numbers. And if they are not quoted in the initial studies, you can easily calculate them from the actual data that is presented. But a truly open, honest study should actually present both numbers. So let's think about what both of these concepts actually mean. And I'm going to draw upon an example. So let's just say you have an illness or outcome that occurs in 10 out of every 10,000 people. You have an intervention, which could be a medical therapeutic or something else, and it reduces the numbers to 2 in 10,000 people. Now, the relative risk reduction going from 10 to 2 people would be 80%. Wow, 80%, that sounds very impressive indeed. However, the absolute risk reduction, considering the total numbers of people, means that the rate goes from 0.1%, which is 10 out of every 10,000 people, to 2 in 10,000 people, which is 0.02%, yielding an absolute risk reduction of 0.08%. So can you see how 80% sounds much better than 0.08%, but they're both referring to an aspect of the risk reduction, the relative risk reduction and the absolute risk reduction.
Let's take a look at the example of, for instance, statins in diabetics over a 4-year period of time, taking it every single day. You'll see this kind of statistic. So if you take 1,000 people in the placebo group, as you can see here, and 1,000 people in the statin group, and what you find at the end of 4 years is that 28 people out of that 1,000 had a stroke. If you put them on a statin every single day, only 15 of them will have a stroke. How does this work? You can calculate something called the relative risk reduction. The relative risk reduction is simply how much did this go down by as a proportion to how much it was in the first place. So that's simply 28 minus 15 divided by 28. So that's 46%. So in other words, you could reduce strokes in diabetics by 46% if you gave them a statin every day for 4 years. That's called the relative risk reduction. And that's a number. Imagine 46% reduction. That's something that you'd probably want to sign up for. But the problem with that statistic is it doesn't take into consideration what the prevalence is of this disease in the population. Obviously, 28 in 1,000 is going to count for something. And so there's something called the absolute risk reduction. And what's the absolute risk reduction? It's that same difference. So 28 minus 15, which is 13, divided by not how many people get the disease in the end, but how many you treated in the first place. 1,000 people. So that's a 1.3% reduction. So you can see here, 46% versus 1.3%. Obviously, the absolute risk reduction is always going to be smaller than the relative risk reduction. So another thing that you can do is you can take the reciprocal of this 1.3% and you will get the number needed to treat. In other words, how many people do you need to treat to prevent one person from getting the problem that you're talking about? So in this case, the number needed to treat is equal to 1 divided by the absolute risk reduction. So 1 divided by 0.013 is equal to 77.
Okay, so we can stop share there. So it's pretty interesting, right? And then, then there's so many other variables, right? So let's say a certain medication can prevent what it was set out to prevent, but we may not be perfectly certain that it's not causing something else that may be worse than the thing it was designed to prevent. That's a whole other ball of wax.
I know.
So what I wanted to key in on here was simply the topic of risk reduction and how that matters. Now, that very last point that he made on there was about the number needed to treat. Now, this becomes really important. So in the case of the statins, you have to treat 77 people to save someone from an event, right? So let's just say if we went by, we're still waiting for the full disclosure of this new study done that I was referring to, like the Wegovy study. Right now, it's just a press release, the 20%. So I don't know the absolute risk reduction yet because I haven't been able to get to the actual data. You need the actual data to assess it. But if we go by a similar study with a similar amount of people from last year that they did on diabetics, the number needed to treat was, I think, somewhere around 47. So let's just say it's 50. What does that mean? So we've got to put 50 people on this medication to save one from a cardiovascular event. Now, let's look at the cost of this. Okay. So these drugs are anywhere from $900 to $1,300 a month or something like this, right? Insurance doesn't always cover them. In fact, yes. And it's a whole mess right now with coverage. So let's say people are paying out of pocket. Let's just look at cost, regardless if insurance paying for it, if you're paying for it. This is cost, right? Nothing is free. Somebody's paying for this. Let's just put that number on 1,000. I don't have a calculator with me, but let's just kind of crunch some numbers.
Yeah.
If you have 50 people per month, right? You want to save like one per month. Let's say paying $1,000 a month, right? Times, it's 5 years. So they did the trial for 5 years. So they got their numbers based off of 5 years. So we kind of got to go with what they said. So times that by 60 months, right?
By 60 months. Okay.
Right? So now we got what? 60,000, it's a
over 50,000.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Right. Yeah, that is a lot. Well, you're talking millions and millions. I think I was crunching the other day, it was 4 or 5 million. Meaning to save one, right? You have to have that amount of people. Now, obviously, there's going to be more and more and more and more people. There will be an absolute number of lives saved. How much money are we collectively pooling? The drug companies don't care. It's billions of dollars when you actually look at the scope of how many people would be on these medications. And it's great for those people that it's quote unquote working for. We haven't even begun talking about side effects or any of the other variables. We're only speaking on just this straightforward number, absolute risk reduction, and monetary amount needed and number needed to treat. And so when we're looking at all of these things, it's important. It's easy. I think most people, they think 20%. That sounds like a pretty big chunk.
Yeah.
But again, relative risk reduction. This is sort of the message that they're trying to get out there, and they're doing a great job of it. I mean, everybody's, oh my God. Is that clinically significant? Yes. Right. But compared to what? If we go back to all of these other interventions, lifestyle interventions that I mentioned, could we not be moving our resources into a better place? I would argue yes.
Yeah, I do.
Of course, and look, I'm biased. I'm a coach. I would, you're going to spend $1,000 a month on that, or you can save some dough and come to me.
Yeah,
and I would submit that I could help you in a far deeper way.
Yeah.
So, thoughts?
I'm just such an advocate for that, of going as holistic as you can. I get that people hit that wall and they just want that boost of hopium and get that one initial progress. Okay, it's happening. But can they take the reins back over and do it themselves? I don't know. But it's a thorn in my side, this media manipulation. And because it's false advertising. And I constantly think of Happy Fun Ball. Do you remember the Saturday Night Live sketch?
Yes.
People, the little kids the littles don't get that one. That just shows my age.
You guys, Happy Fun Ball. I'm guessing
you could
find it on YouTube as a sketch. It was a Saturday Night Live.
I tried. I mean, I guess you have to dig, but I think they even knew it was a setup.
I'm going to try to track down Happy Fun Ball. Make a note of that.
It's basically a pharma commercial, but it was a Saturday Night Live sketch. And it's kind of how the commercials are now. I point them out to the giant all the time. Something will pop on and they're happy. They're playing. They're doing their thing. But then there's the side effects. So anyhow, and you don't see them saying, by the way, this is a relative risk reduction percentage. It's not the absolute. They're just going to show you the numbers that will make you go,
the way
ah,
that they would,
great.
the way that they would like to see them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
would like to see them.
Yeah.
And again, for all you nerds out there, yes, I get it. It's still clinically significant. I get it. I'm as big of a nerd as you. But what I have a problem with the lack of transparency, and also just simply, our lack of literacy in these areas. I think that's a whole other rant on how we're educated on these things, on statistics, on critical thinking, on how to kind of read between the lines on these things.
Yeah.
If I may segue a bit.
Yeah.
Because in the conversation of these kind of treatments, right? So we're looking at essentially this drug, these semaglutides they're a big deal for these companies, because what they're clearly trying to do is they're going to be able to capture a very broad market. What we're seeing with this cardiovascular event, study is, 50% of U.S. American adults have heart disease, guys. 50%. Okay. So they know that now.
And can I say some? I think a lot have it and they don't know it too.
Right. Well,
like that's
majority
50%
aren't realizing, right? Yeah.
Right,
But if you were to test 100 people, right? It's how they get that, right? The rule of large numbers. You test 1,000 people, you test 10,000 people. Consistently, about half show evidence of some level of cardiovascular disease. So that's how they get that. And then you can just extrapolate that on a population level. You're right. A lot of people have no effing idea that they're ticking time bombs. A lot of people, sadly. A lot of people don't know they're pre-diabetic. Again, I beat this drum. 100 million Americans are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. 100 million. 100 million. Okay? Yeah. So these are big numbers. And so what's exciting for these companies about this classification of drugs is they can capture the diabetic market. They can capture the weight loss market. That's huge. 42% adult obesity, 20% childhood obesity. And if you're talking about grouping together overweight and obesity, it's about 70% adult, if you include overweight and obesity. And then there was actually a recent study that showed on DEXA scans that the people that were of weight with BMI, about twice as many of these people were, so the BMI showed that there was about 30 something people were overweight, but the DEXA scan showed like 70% were actually over fat. So even though they weren't overweight, they were over fat. They were skinny fat. So that's a whole other issue we're realizing. So you can present skinny fat is when your body composition, you're under muscled and you're over fat. So you could be skinny, you could be of weight, your BMI could be normal, but you're actually carrying a lot of fat. You're carrying visceral fat around your organs. And so that's also what's going on under the hood of Americans right now. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to pull up again, do a little screen share of a study done over 20 years ago. Let me screen share. Oops.
I want to stress how important it is to know what these two numbers are.
Yeah, we don't want that. I'm going to find, that's okay. I'm going to find a document here. If I may, we can go to a window. And here we go. Share. Okay.
Okay. Oops, wrong window. 1 second.
Is it?
Oh, that's it.
There we go. So this is a study done February 7th, 2002. Okay. This is over 20 years ago. And this was a study done, and it involved the diabetic medication metformin. This is very, very popular drug for type 2 diabetes. And how many people that have gone in to get, looked at by the doctor, finding out they're diabetic, how many people are told by their doctor about this study? It's a rhetorical question. I'm guessing probably next to none. And if we looked at this intervention, they randomly assigned 3,234 non-diabetic persons with elevated fasting and post-load plasma glucose concentrations. What this was over 3,000 people that were in poor metabolic health. They were basically on the verge of, they were moving toward diabetes clearly, just given their elevated fasting blood sugar numbers. So they wanted to follow this population over the course of years. Okay. Now, when they did that, I'm going to pull up a blown up shot here. But if we look at the lifestyle intervention, It reduced the incidence by 58%, and metformin reduced the incidence of diabetes by 31%. Placebo is worse. So let's zoom in on that, okay? Incidence of diabetes was reduced by 58% with the lifestyle intervention and by 31% with metformin. Now, whether that's relative or absolute or not, we do see it's almost double, right? We can clearly tell 58 is damn near double to 31. So we know that it's about twice as effective, no matter how you slice it, on absolute or relative to the drug. We look closer, cumulative incidence of diabetes, and you can see they followed this population over the course of here. It's 4 years. Okay. If you look at years in the bottom here, 0 to about 6 months into about a year, you saw the metformin and the lifestyle group were sort of neck and neck. But then the lifestyle group started pulling away. And over the course of 4 years, lifestyle did much, much better than both placebo and metformin. And so if we go back to this study, what was the intervention? Okay, what was the methods? Well, the methods was this. It was a lifestyle modification program with the goals of at least a 7% weight loss and at least 150 minutes of physical activity per week. Okay. How much is that? Okay, 150
so doable.
divided by 150 minutes divided by 7, guys. A little over 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Now, in the year since, we've seen other studies that sort of replicate this, where there were studies done. I wish I had it quickly to pull up, but there was a study done on post-meal walks, right? Where they showed post-meal 10-minute walks done 3 times a day, as effective as some of these medications. Okay, let's get over to another. So let's just say that right out the gate, I go to my doctor and the doctor makes me aware of this. What about a journalist? What about a media outlet that says studies show, right? Studies show, follow the science, right? I thought we were following science. Here's some science. Lifestyle intervention, right? Behavioral interventions. Okay, so we've got that. Now, let's say somebody may not want to go on a prescription pharmaceutical. They like a natural alternative. We can look at literature on something like berberine. Now, oddly enough, TikTok has grabbed a hold of berberine, which is always hilarious. But to clarify some stuff, berberine is seen as this alternative to the GLP-1 drugs. It really shouldn't be seen that way because it has a different mechanism of action. We'll get to some good alternatives to GLP-1s in a sec, but what this could be seen as is a fairly decent alternative to something like metformin. If we see the hypoglycemic effect of berberine was similar to that of metformin, ability to reduce blood sugar. Conclusion of this study was this pilot study indicated that berberine was a potent oral hypoglycemic agent with beneficial effects on lipid metabolism also. So that's things like your triglycerides, cholesterol. Another study, the effect of berberine on weight loss in order to prevent obesity, right? And when we looked here, I can, I think, scroll down. Actually, in this study, I should do a keyword search. We can go through here, lipids. Here we go. Clinical research animal studies provide significant results showing that berberine can regulate glucose, lipid metabolism, and attenuate insulin resistance, all the things that metformin is set out to do. And so if I scroll down here a bit to the conclusions, berberine is not only effective for obesity, but also for other systems and consequences of obesity, such as diabetes and cancer. And if we actually look at this, we saw actually other areas where it prevented or it helped to reduce the epithelial gut permeability, right, to restore gut barrier function in the intestinal tract. I think this actual study showed that it was favorable. It even performed better than the metformin when it came to lipids. So you can stop the share on this.
Yeah.
So stop there. We'll probably do one more share a little bit on the GLP-1 drugs. But again, I'm just highlighting a couple of things, right? I could go on and on, guys, about interventions that are shown in the literature that, again, Some of them may or may not be quite as powerful, but they have better safety profiles. They could be more affordable, might set you back $15, $20 a month. Along with, we start stacking on behavioral interventions, motivational interviewing, and addressing, the diet piece of this. Like, we've had entire shows about this. Our Hunger Always Wins episode, guys, walks through this beautifully when we understand hunger always wins and why. Because ultimately, when people are going on these weight loss medications, especially thinking in terms of a child, like let's say it's a 13-year-old child. It's one thing if you're 65 years old, you have so many years left, right? You're 13 years old. We know that if you're on these medications, you have to stay on them to get their benefit. So eventually, if the idea is, and I think most would agree, the idea would be to peel away from these, you're going to have to go through the process of education and lifestyle change and all these things anyway. Yes, there are some cases that even I would say, it could be worth it. We got to look at the trade-offs. This could be worth it. We've got a critical situation. This could be worth it.
Very small percent of people like that.
What I'm seeing is this sort of like, again, these media narratives are meaningful. These are a big deal because these are what most people just have time for, to be honest. They just see headlines or headline readers. They just see 20% this, drug that, Wegovy safe. Okay, good. Okay, sign me up.
Yeah.
But if they're not getting my thing is, I'm not going to make decisions for people. But when people come to me, I'm going to show them everything that I know that could be relevant to their decision-making process so that they have the ability to make those decisions, informed consent, if you will.
Yeah.
That is important to know. Like, how many people that I've met with, they had no idea about that metformin lifestyle study. They had no idea about berberine. They had no idea about GLP-1 and eating protein and vegetables and healthy fats first for this. So lastly, I could pull that up on the screen if you'd like on the GLP-1s. Let me do a screen share here.
You know what I want to share really quick too is with that 10-minute
walk.
walk.
That existing
okay.
Share, yeah.
Yeah,
talk about
Oh, wait, here it is. Well, what I mean is we're talking about big heavy hitters like diabetes, cancer, things. But don't forget what that 10-minute walk can do. Depression, bonds you with your family, walks your pet.
Right.
I mean, it clears your skin because you're getting circulation. Like all these good things, gentle things you can be doing. And my favorite word of our entire series, you empower yourself by doing it yourself. So
absolutely. So it's all of these things. Exactly, Heidi. It's you get side benefits, right? And I always say, there's no side effects, there's effects. Things have effects. It's not like that effect is happening somewhere over there. No, it's an effect. And we're having positive effects or negative effects. So let's just touch on a couple quick things on just food and how we can use food in a way to manipulate some of these hormones and the same hormones that these drugs act upon. Here's a review of findings on meal sequence, right? It's an attractive dietary approach to prevention and management of type 2 diabetes. So let's talk about the diabetes part. When we look at meal sequence, i.e. consumption of protein and or fat before carbohydrate, promotes secretion of glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, from the gut and ameliorates secretions of insulin and glucagon and does what? Delays gastric emptying. Okay, why is that important? If we go over to the user guide to mechanisms of action, clinical use of GLP-1 receptor agonists, these drugs I've been carrying on about, if we look, effects on GLP-1 receptors on the CNS and the gastrointestinal tract cause reduced appetite and delayed glucose absorption due to what? Slower gastric emptying. We do that through food. Now, what we're seeing, and I will honestly say, to be honest, one of these headlines, kind of fear-mongering. We are seeing some lawsuits that they're suing these drug companies for gastroparesis, which is basically like a paralysis of the GI tract. I don't see that as a big concern with these drugs. So, I mean, I'm kind of all for the facts and data. Like, believe me, I don't want to go to bat for these drug companies, but I do think it's a bit of a frivolous lawsuit. Okay. However, that's happened to some people where that delayed gastric emptying effect has gone a little too far. And, we do know that nausea and vomiting is very common in those drugs, and that's unpleasant, right? But if we're actually looking at the mechanism of action, it's on the same action on the GLP-1 hormones, incretin hormones. We also see dietary fiber intake before carbohydrate intake significantly reduces postprandial glucose elevation, meaning kind of smooths out the blood sugar spikes. Here's another paper, nutritional modulation of endogenous glucagon like peptide 1 secretion, right? Fancy. But again, foods rich in these nutrients, such as high fiber grain, nuts, avocados, eggs, also seem to influence GLP-1 secretion and may thus promote associated beneficial outcomes in healthy individuals as well as individuals with type 2 diabetes, right? The stimulation of endogenous, meaning from within your body's own secretion, stimulation of endogenous GLP-1 secretion by manipulating the composition of the diet may be a relevant strategy for obesity and type 2 diabetes management. Okay, so close screen. Mm-hmm. Now, is it as powerful, right? Is eating this way as powerful? No. But is it part of the piece? For sure. And again, if we start to stack, here we go. Meal sequence, the type of food, the breath work, the meditation, the social interaction, the walks with family, the social bonding. You start to stack all of these therapies and a little bit of help maybe from some herbs like berberine, right? We can start doing things and really significantly moving the needle without ever having to go to a prescription. Now, does that sound like more work? Of course.
It sounds empowering.
But it sounds pretty awesome. It sounds like the work that's going to be needed to be done. Yeah. I don't believe that there's a free lunch. I think people are extremely excited about these medications. I get it. They're pretty powerful. But again, it's like that Steve Martin, the jerk film, when everybody at the end goes cross-eyed, right? Everybody's cross-eyed at the end.
Such a good movie.
It's just too good to be true, right? So yeah, I think that's kind of, that's kind of what I wanted to get off my chest. I know I was rambling on a lot. It's
the best
episode,
rambling ever.
I'll tell you what, these are the kind of things that I'm on the watch for. These are the kind of things I'm encouraging others to be on the lookout for, the kind of questions you want to ask, what you deserve to know. And so when people come to me and they work with me, I'm going to show them these studies. If they have questions and they can print these things out, they can go to their doctor. That's what I'm interested in doing, is just giving you the information and saying, okay, here are the trade-offs. Here's what's great about this intervention. Here's what you might want to consider. Here's what you're giving up. Here's what you're getting.
Choices.
Drop the mic.
Everybody has choices. Drop the mic and make better choices. Yeah. It's like the
shades back.
Yeah.
I think we need to, I'm going to give you a little there, then we can.
You're gonna have to break out some of your rapping soon.
He's also a songwriter. You guys might have to just keep watching, because eventually, bars. Your boy's gonna be dropping a hot 16.
That's awesome. I love the props. That's everything. I appreciate it. You gave all perspectives on showing without such heavy opinionation of this is bad, this is good. It's the evidence.
Look, we're in an era where I kind of have an issue with sort of both sides of the situation here. If you're going to say, you got Big Pharma doing what they're doing, you've got the social media influencers, the gurus and all that. They got to be they're doing what they're doing. Everybody's fighting for attention. It's a clickbait world. We're 15, 20, 30 second clips that are designed to engage you. A lot of that stuff's there. We all kind of got to play that game, I guess, to try to fight for people's, for their attention. Yeah. I like to be nuanced in my approach. That's just me, because I think that's that's just the way to do it, right? That's just the way that, you know, we can't just look at things as good and bad. We can't look at people as good and bad. We've got to see like it's all on a spectrum. Could there be value in prescription interventions? Yeah. But are we moving toward a very dangerous place where the normalization of this, I think, is going to start taking over? Absolutely. And I was telling, Heidi before we started taping, it reminds me a lot of what was done with the 70s and 80s with medications like Ritalin, where there were very strict, guidelines, 16 and older only. And it was, very strict criteria. Over time, that gets chipped away. And now we're seeing little ones as young as 2 being put on these kind of medications. And that honestly disgusts me.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I'm very good at patterns and identifying where things are headed. And I'm watching where things are going. And I feel like we're just going to kind of replicate that same history. And I plan on speaking out against it. And I think that, these little media clips that are managing to just, if you're going to talk about the guidelines, guys, talk about them in their totality. Tell me more about motivational interviewing. Tell me more about what the studies on behavioral intervention say. Yeah, there's a little more investment of time and work and partnership, but the payoff is so huge.
Oh, yeah. And with parents are going to be triggered by the emotional response to hearing something's wrong with their child. So they're going to want the quick thing, or what's the doctor. If there's more knowledge, a better rounded perspective of what these medications can do and what are the other ways to handle it, they can make better choices and feel better about them. Because there's so much fear porn out there.
Decisions are almost only based on emotions.
Yeah.
For better or worse,
Yeah.
I'm putting up all these facts and figures, and honestly, I know in the back of my mind, I don't know, how much does that, how far does that go? The narrative, who's going to win the narrative largely depends on who can hit those emotional buttons. As sad as it is, if you're on the front lines, that's what it looks like. We have a population that these companies that have the resources to understand you better than you know yourself, they know when they're ready to deliver a certain message. They know when the time is right. And so we're up against kind of a juggernaut. They have all the data. They know the ins and outs. They know the way to market you. They know the words that are going to work exactly in the right way. They know how to frame the marketing. We're one of only 2 countries in the entire world that's allowed to advertise pharmaceuticals to the public. It's the United States and New Zealand. There's the only 2 countries in the world. That's true. Okay. That's the fact.
Wow. So
the majority of these prescriptions happen in the good old US of A because we can be marketed to. When we're watching a commercial and they're smiling and they're playing tennis and they're walking the dog or the happy fun ball kind of thing, you're so distracted by the bouncy music and the smiling faces that meanwhile, they're reading off a list of side effects at 100 miles an hour and the print is super, super tiny on the bottom of the screen. It's not going to matter. And they say, the guidelines. Well, we have all that in the guidelines. We have the behavior interventions in the guidelines. Well, right. Who's going to read let's do one more share for kicks. I just want to show you. Pull up the doc. Pull up the
same one?
Yeah. Let me just show you something. Okay. Here it is. Okay. Clinical practice guideline for evaluation and treatment of children and adolescents with obesity. This is a 100-page document.
Dang.
Okay. So yeah, it's all in here. It's all in here. Okay. All these other interventions. What's grabbing the headlines? So, if I go in here and I do keyword search for, motivation, okay, I'm going to find, here's my section, motivational interviewing. This would be kind of nice to do a media segment on, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
A patient-centered
Yes.
Right? Counseling style that identifies and reinforces patients' own motivation for change, right? In contrast to the more traditional approach in which a provider prescribes behavior change, right? Motivational interviewing guides families to identify behavior to change based on what the parent or child feels is important and can be accomplished. Okay. Motivational interviewing does not impose a particular goal, but is successful when the family changes the selected behavior, which could be nutritional, such as reduced sugar sweetened beverages, increasing physical activity, or engaging in other behaviors such as eating meals together or improving sleep hygiene, et cetera, et cetera. Can close this share here.
Yeah.
On this document, 100-page document, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reference papers. And it could go on and on and on and on and reference that.
Mm-hmm.
And the results of these interventions are amazing. So what are we doing? What are we doing? And you're right. Motivational interviewing, what's so beautiful is its ability to bring family together. It's the ability to bring out empathy. It's the ability to empower. It's the ability to ignite that internal drive, rather than this solution coming from the outside in. Remember when we did that episode on Change Talk? I'm coming at my clients, the parents, the kids as, you're the expert in you. So I need to learn from you, and I'm going to ask questions that pull that out of you and engage you in a conversation to get you to find out your own motivations, your own goals, and come up with your own strategy that I can help keep you accountable with, help guide you along the way. That's the way, guys. That's the way. Because if money was it, we spend more money on healthcare than any country in the world, and our results are abysmal.
It's just, that just kind of shows you who's, the manipulation right there. Yeah.
Correct. And it's the magnification of certain aspects. They want you to see certain things, and then these other things get pushed to the background, glossed over, shrunk.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to shine a light more and more and more to level the scales a bit and to balance the conversation so people can go, oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I could do 150 minutes of activity a week, 20 something minutes a day. Okay.
Gosh,
and that is evidence-based to work better than metformin.
Yeah. Yeah.
A paper that paper came out, Heidi, like around the time that we moved to LA.
Isn't that crazy?
It's been around now. How many, and again, you're not hearing about doctors having those discussions and saying, would you be interested in a lifestyle intervention? And would you be interested in learning what the data says? And would you be willing to undertake that? That's an option.
Oh, he froze. You froze that last one. After lifestyle intervention, what was the last thing you said?
A doctor coming forward and actually offering that and saying, are you aware of, would you be willing to go on a lifestyle intervention? And I get it. Look, I worked for a doctor and compliance is tough and I get it. But I was so lucky to be able to work for a doctor that really believed in this wholeheartedly. And without fail, when there was a buy-in from the patients, without fail, it worked every time. Without fail, if there was a buy-in, there has to be buy-in. It doesn't just, I understand it's tempting. You get a once-a-week shot. That's what these drugs are. It's a once-a-week shot. I get it.
I know, the quick fix, easy. And we could spend a whole hour talking about the agendas and conspiracies behind it all, but I truly appreciate, Lawrence, that we actually spent the hour talking about information so people can make their own rational discernment.
It's not my job, motivation as far as like why this is this way or to ascribe motive. I mean, it could be malice, it could be ignorance. That's not really important to me. I have an interest in what's going on. What are the drivers? But what I'm really interested in, what are the results? What are we seeing in plain sight that's irrefutable?
Yeah.
Regardless of what the underlying motivations are, what are we seeing right out in the open And then more importantly, what are we not seeing? What are they not showing? What are they not talking about? I mean, yeah, that news clip really got me pressed. I was like, how are you going to put that? And that was the thumbnail. You know, the thumbnail showed motivational interviewing. So I was like, oh my God, I've never, you know, they're gonna talk about this on the news.
They're going there.
They said they certainly said the words motivational interviewing, but if you notice, it was 3 seconds later, it was a hard pivot right into a piece on the medication. So
it's like,
what do you do? Like, I mean, yeah, moving right along.
I appreciate you so much, Lawrence. I really do. Thank you for keeping such a beautiful round perspective. Thank you for reminding us we all have choices we can make when it comes to empowering ourselves with our health and our health journey, and so importantly, the health journey of our children. Because we set them up for success, or we set them up for a really patience for life. That was opinion, huh?
No, it's a wonderful opinion. I mean, you know, opinions matter. It all matters, you know. And thank you for providing me a little platform to basically let me go into these deep dive vents and rants about things that I'm really passionate about. And, you know, this is what I live for. I wake up in the morning and get fired up. And what are we looking at today?
I love it. So. I love it. And I appreciate you. Well, folks, I think that wraps up a little bit of that was pretty juicy. I hope you did enjoy, and I hope you do take the time to check out Lawrence, kidsgethealthy.com. I actually have one of these things.
Kidsgethealthy.com and
let's not forget. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, and kidsgethealthyUSA on Instagram.
It's the Instagram. Yep. Yeah. And I just want to give another shout out to Rainbow Chefs Academy. Lawrence is doing amazing work over there. Please check out that program.
RainbowChefsAcademy.com. And it's like Rainbow Chefs _ if you just put Rainbow Chefs on Instagram, you'll find us on there, and we're doing some awesome stuff.
Yeah, I got to throw those brands up here. And we're going to close out again with the Kids Get Healthy commercial, I like to call it, that Lawrence worked on. But please, now's my humble little, please may I have your like and subscribe?
Could you please place your comment below?
We'd love to hear from you.
Like a little crumb of commenting, please.
I've totally been on hiatus, like a little summer break myself, but this I'm very passionate about, and I'm continually putting my all into it, and I'm honored to give you a platform. So don't forget, every Tuesday, every 2 weeks.
Every two Tuesdays at 2.
You will find us here. Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you for that like and subscribe and sharing. Okay. Thanks, Lawrence. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Heidi.
Have a beautiful and see you in 2.
Happy August.